I think a lot of us hold ourselves back when it comes to the pursuit of anything that we actually want. And when I say that, I mean when it comes to ourselves, I feel like we attribute so much and carry so much that it gets hard to take the steps necessary to get to our goals. And when I say that, I'm really meaning that, you have to let yourself go to let yourself grow. I feel like a lot of our growth is very much impaired by our inability to let go of our current idea of ourselves. And that's why I think, the whole point of breaking the habit of being yourself is understanding that who you are isn't necessarily entirely solid. There's aspects of you that, of course, are going to remain unchanged. But I feel like a lot of that is up to our distinction and up to how much of ourselves or how much, I guess, attention we give to those parts of ourselves that are seeking out change. And it's also about the conscious choice that we make to tend towards something better for a specific part of us. I feel like a lot of us try to take our negativity and whatever negative parts we have of ourselves and just cast them aside as if they shouldn't be part of us or as if they aren't part of us, you know. And I just talked about it in my last video, but what we run from is already caught us. And I feel like in that way, if we're running from parts of ourselves, then there's no escape. And that's why I feel like the intention shouldn't necessarily be placed on running, but facing whatever it is that we have internally. And of course, I can only say that with a grain of salt. Of course, there's things in life that, people have to take their time to adjust and whatnot. But when it comes to things that I think we want to get on top of and things that we want to change in general for our longevity in our life, then we have to make that conscious intention and conscious effort to do so. And it doesn't even have to be a stress thing, I find. I find that in letting yourself go, it's about letting go of that stress. I feel like a lot of us are maintained through some type of mental effort, whether or not we're conscious of it. And I feel like that drains our energy on a day-to-day basis. I feel like a lot of people get tired of being themselves or expressing themselves in a certain way or feeling like they have to do this, that, and other, and jump over so many hoops to find some type of comfort in their life. And that's why I think the importance should always be placed in affirmation of the self. And that's not even to say like you have to be delusional about who you are or have some type of complex in your head. I'm really just saying you have to treat yourself like a person and accept yourself the way you are so you can see the parts of yourself that you actually want to change and transform into something better. And it's not about disregarding, it's about your renovation of yourself. Understanding that the negative parts you have are only in reference to the good ones. And that's not to say you'll always have a balanced amount of good and bad parts, but to say that, your patience is only measured by your impatience. And that's what I mean by, you have to live in reference to yourself and nothing else. Because if you live in reference to yourself in that regard, then that type of change is something you can see and you can somewhat quantify. But I feel like it's when we're trying to compare ourselves to that which is not us, i.e. other people, other situations, other events, then often we get caught up in the mental perception of whatever it is we're looking at. And in that way, our projection isn't necessarily a projection of our feelings, but a projection of our feelings of an event or person circumstance back onto us. And that's why I feel like we carry so much. And that's also a part of letting go. Realizing that you don't have to perform for anybody. All you have to do is be you, and you don't owe anyone else an explanation in cultivating and instantiating who you are in this world. And I don't mean that to say don't care about what other people think 100%. I'm not saying don't listen to anybody. Of course, you can listen to people. But I feel like our listening to people is not something we should do in effort, but in our willingness to do so. And to that same regard, we have to be willing to listen to ourselves. I feel like pretty much I wouldn't say everything. I wouldn't say a lot. Most of the things I know about myself or any type of mindfulness in regards to my experience has come from me listening or me being present enough to see certain trends and certain things within myself. And the more I become clouded by, I guess, what's going on around me or in terms of like, I don't know, things I'm trying to stress about or things I think I'm investing my value in, the more I lose sight of that presence and the more I lose sight of myself. Because the more we spread ourselves out into other things, this is that and the other, and distribute, I guess, our energy into events and circumstances and people and places that don't necessarily serve us and aren't us, then that's where we lose it. Because invest in my, I guess, I wouldn't even say just energy, but our attachment how much we allow some sort of external things to define our internal comfort, internal peace, and internal self. That's how we lose it. Because we're instantiating it and putting it in other things other than ourselves. And of course, I say you have to put yourself in to get yourself out. And what I mean by that is be fully present within the situation. Bring yourself to the situation. So it's not fragmented, it's not rehearsed, it's not this is that and other. But it allows you to see how you actually are and how you actually interact with a certain stimulus, circumstance, and whatnot. And I feel like in that way, we're opening up the doors for our own understanding. And I feel like knowledge of the self, in a way, is knowledge of the world. I don't mean that in the sense to say if you know yourself, you know everything about the world, but to say if you know yourself well enough and you find comfort in that, then you begin to explore it. You begin to explore the world around you. And I feel like that's sort of what brings beauty to life is, the happiness that ensues from your learning. Because I feel like as long as you're learning, you can't fail. And I feel like learning about yourself is all we ever tend to do. And I feel like that's what all anyone ever finds comfort in. Because they understand that maybe a specific action, specific thing, specific expression has made them see more of themselves. And by that thing, they learn how to sort of express themselves through a certain medium. And I feel like it's that kind of expression, it's that kind of thing that allows people to find comfort in real life. I feel like that's what all artists and creatives sort of do, is express their perspective through a specific medium. And I feel like not to say that everyone has to be a creative artist, but to say that everyone should do something creative and artistic in a way. And it doesn't even have to be like drawing, painting something, this is and the other. It could just be whatever it is that makes you feel most like yourself. And I feel like in doing that thing, we find it. Because it's always been right here with us, and it hasn't ever been in reference to anything else. I feel like the only place you ever find yourself is where you are, and it's just about taking a step back long enough to see that. To see whatever it is in front of you. In saying that you have to let yourself go to let yourself grow is to say that you have to give yourself space. And I feel like a lot of us are accustomed to a very finite amount of mobility when it comes to their expression and comes to who they are. In saying we have to break the habit of being ourselves, I feel like a lot of people have themselves in some sort of rehearsed, played out, thought of, overthought expression of who they are. And I feel like we shouldn't be subject to our own bias when it comes to our expression. And I don't mean that to say don't listen to yourself, but I mean that to say understand what parts of yourself are from you and what's pulling your strings that's not from you. And I feel like if you want to write your own story, it has to be in reference to you, and you have to be the one to hold the pen. I'm not saying that you can define everything you are and everyone else will have to accept that. But I have to say, if you want to be something else, your embodiment is simply contingent on your ability to give yourself space to be within that. And what I mean by that is you have to open yourself up to different avenues of expression in different modes of being. You have to allow yourself to sort of occupy the space that you want to take up. Like if you want to be this specific occupation or you want to achieve this, you have to bring that achievement to the present moment. And I don't mean that in the sense like you have to go out there and just grab it and take it back, but in the sense that you have to make it real enough in your head to give yourself, I guess, the presence and the vision to see whenever those opportunities arrive. Because you have to be present enough to see and present to capitalize off of any opportunity that comes your way. And you can't do that if we're constantly stuck in our mind, especially about ourselves. I feel like the way we worry about ourselves is sort of contradictory at times. Because it's that very worry that keeps us stuck and stagnant and not able to actually do what we want and do the things we need in order to mitigate that stress. And I feel like a lot of times anxiety just needs an answer. We have to answer our anxiety with sometimes, and I don't necessarily mean with clinically diagnosed anxiety, but in terms of the feeling. I find that my anxiety at times is only mitigated by my ability to actually act upon whatever it is that's causing my anxiety. And that's why I think it's important to be present enough to hear yourself as well. Because to run from feeling, I feel like is a lot of times to run from yourself. And you have to understand the implications of your certain feelings and why you feel certain ways about this, that, and the other. And I feel like at the end of the day, those things always lead back to your answer, namely yourself. Because I feel like if you can realize that you're the path to your own life, and you're sort of not even just the vessel, but the very thing that is the path. It's about how much you attribute to yourself and how much you keep adding and how much you grow and how much, reality you give to what it is that is you. And I feel like once you get to the point of, I guess, understanding that, then all life becomes is just a big lesson, a big opportunity for you to see other perspectives and see other things within the world and understand which things you want to, I guess, add on to your own plate, add on to your own perspective to live your life in a way that's more beneficial to you. I don't mean that in reference to bringing others down, because I feel like when it comes to self-improvement, it's never in the degradation of other people, but the affirmation of the self. I feel like, and once you genuinely do that, it won't be about other people. Like, I don't tell myself any affirmations. Like, if I say, what's to say something like, oh, I love myself, I don't mean that to say like I love other people less, or I hate other people, or hate somebody. I feel like it's just about the relationship you have with yourself. And I feel like if we can realize that, then we have to realize that we shouldn't be looking outside in regards to it. Like, if I want to love myself, I shouldn't have some type of conditions set up that are based on something external. If my own self-love is something that's very internal. And that's what's meant by not looking for external solutions for internal problems. Because I feel like a lot of our issues are really just a projection of our own bias onto the world. And recognizing that bias, it's about somewhat taking that step forward to understand that a lot of what we face isn't necessarily an obstacle or something that we have to overcome, but something we have to understand. And I feel like in understanding our obstacles and in understanding this, that, and the other, it creates a pathway for you to walk straight through them. Because what you can understand, you can actually interact with, you can actually influence. And I think if we can understand ourselves to that degree better, then we can influence our own action better. Because what we do isn't necessarily always based on things outside of us, but how we react internally. And that might have been set up by something outside of us, like your parents, your growing up, your circumstances, your this, that, and the other. But I think if we're present enough to realize negativity or some parts of ourselves are seeking out change, then we have to be responsible enough to actually enact that change via our presence, via our intention. And our intention shouldn't really be placed on anything but being ourselves and being the best version of that self, and doing your best. And I feel like doing your best isn't always about success. Doing your best is really just about doing your best and bringing your best foot forward regardless of the circumstance. So whatever it is you come across can be something that you appreciate regardless. Our appreciation isn't necessarily contingent on other things to appreciate, and what we are grateful for should not be in reference to other things we're grateful for. I feel like the intimacy of life is always characterized by treating everything as if it was new. Every situation, every time you talk to a person, maybe you see them every day, but it's a new experience and a new pathway, and I feel like you learn so much more in that way. Because I feel like once we connotate something as old or this is another, we fail to listen to it. We fail to see it too. And I feel like everyone and everything is always sharing some type of unique perspective in a way that I feel like can benefit everyone. Some people have certain parts of the answer, I feel like, figured out. And it just takes you an open ear and open eyes in order to see all the parts of ourselves that are expressed or at least seen in everything around us. And in that way, we are, in a sense, like a representation of all that's around us. It just takes, I guess, conscious intention to see the ways in which we can learn from everything around us. And I feel like accepting that you don't know everything opens your door to learning. And I think the same thing works with ourselves. We shouldn't treat ourselves like some solid thing that we know everything about, when we always have things that sort of shake that idea. Like, I express myself in a certain way, and sometimes I'm like, wow, I didn't know like I had that capacity within myself, but I feel like we always have. And it's just about how much reality we give to ourselves in terms of our ability to grow and ability to express that allows us to express ourselves in certain ways. And I feel like any expression of the self should always be done from a place of affirmation. Realizing that if you don't affirm what you do and you don't affirm, I guess, not even just yourself, but your idea as well, then you can't expect anyone else to. And I think no expectation should be placed on anyone else to do that. Because you have to be, one, present enough to see yourself and be able to do your best. But honestly, be honest with yourself. Because I feel like self-awareness is a great tool when it comes to self-development. And that's not to say be hyper aware of everything you do and then connotate it and try to restrict yourself, because you'll end up in the same place. I feel like self-improvement is often a double-edged sword when it comes to becoming aware of yourself. I feel like it's also about that grace that you give yourself, and also about how much of yourself you're willing to let go to allow good parts to come in. Like if I think this part of myself is negative, the more I hold on to it, the more I hold on to that idea, the more I constantly enforce it with thoughts like, oh, I'm this way, I'm this way, I'm this way, I'm this way. Negative affirmation, the more it's going to be affirmed into my character. And I think giving yourself room to grow or letting yourself go is about opening your doors to other affirmation and not necessarily connotating yourself in your head in any negative way and not contributing to your own negativity. And I feel like once you get to the point of not contributing to your own negativity, it just becomes an effort to realize what you want instantiated within yourself. Because a lot of what's placed in life is what we give it, and a lot of what's placed in ourselves is what we give ourselves. And it doesn't even have to be an intentional thing, because I feel like we all have thoughts we repeat. And they might be thoughts, given by society or given by certain people in our family or certain events or certain situations. But I feel like if we're conscious enough to realize that those things influence the way we think, then we have to be the ones to posit some type of positivity within our own life to a point of allowing ourselves to grow and giving ourselves the necessary, stimulus and necessary whatever to overcome any obstacle that comes in our path. So I guess if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. I really do appreciate all of y'all from the bottom of my heart. Please take care of yourselves. Make sure you're treating yourself like a friend, doing what you can with what you have right where you are. Realizing that your growth isn't in reference to anybody but you. And I feel like that's one of the most important things when it comes to your self-improvement journey, because we all get lost and we all get caught up in trying to, compare it to something else. And I feel like ourselves doesn't have to be compared and contrasted in order to be seen. It just has to be, given the opportunity, given the audience of yourself to see whatever it is that's being expressed. All that's to be said. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.